8.1 Inverse variation. In inverse variation, two variables, x and y, show inverse variation when they are related as follows. So when they are related as an equation, y equals a divided by x, when a is not 0. For example, you could have y equals 5 over x, or y equals 10 over x. Those are inverse variation. A is the constant of variation, and y is said to vary inversely with x. So on your assignment, you will see several times where it says y varies inversely with x. That means you have your inverse variation here. Now, on another note, you have something called direct variation. With direct variation, your equation is a little bit different. It is y equals a times x, or it can also be written as y divided by x over a. So if you're looking at both of those with inverse variation, it's a divided by x. Direct variation is a times x, a being the constant of variation, which is typically a coefficient or a number of some kind. So looking at example 1, tell whether x and y show direct variation, inverse variation, or neither. Well, A says x times y equals 5. If we look back right here, this says y equals a divided by x. If I am to rewrite that so that the x and the y are on the same side, then I'm going to multiply both sides by that x that's on the bottom. So now I have x times y equals a. That is also another form of inverse variation. So in this one, x times y equals 5. That proves that it is definitely inverse variation. And looking at that, the constant of variation is 5. So a equals 5. If we look at b, y equals a minus 4. Well, the inverse variation and direct variation both, neither one of them have a plus or minus anything. So this one is going to be a neither because it has minus 4. Okay. Whoops. Looking right here now, y divided by 2 equals x. If we were to change the form of that, multiply both sides by 2 here and here. On the left side, the 2's are going to cancel, and I get y equals 2 times x. Well, if you look back to that first page, that is the exact form for direct variation. And your constant of variation is a equals 2. All right, so now let's look at a few tables. To determine if I have direct variation or inverse variation or neither using a table, I'm going to have to do some multiplying and dividing. So if I take first y divided by x, which is coming from my direct variation formula, y divided by x. If I try that with each of these, negative 12 divided by 2, well, that gives me negative 6. If I take negative 6 divided by 4, that gives me negative 3 over 2. Those are not the same. So that right there alone tells me it is not direct variation. Now let's try inverse. Inverse is x times y. So let's try that with some of these numbers. 2 times negative 12, that's going to give me negative 24. 4 times negative 6 also gives me negative 24. 6 times negative 4 gives me negative 24. And lastly, 8 times negative 3 gives me negative 24. These are all the same. Since they are all the same, it is an inverse variation with a equaling negative 24 because that is the constant that I get every single time. All right, let's try that again with b. So we're going to try y divided by x to see if it is direct. We have 2 divided by 1 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 8 divided by 3. Well, that just gives me 8/3. So we were good until there. This point right here messed it up. So it's not inverse. I'm sorry, it's not direct. Now let's try inverse. X times y. So we have 1 times 2, which is 2. We have 2 times 4, which is 8. That messes it up there. It is not direct either, which means this is a neither. Okay? Example 3. The variables x and y vary inversely. So that's what I was talking about earlier. It tells you variables x and y vary inversely. And y equals 4 when x equals 3. Write an equation that relates x and y. Then find y when x is equal to -2. So let's just take this a piece at a time. It tells me that they vary inversely, so I'm going to start off with my x times y equals a, because I'm given an x and a y value. So now let's just plug that x and y in, and I get 3 times 4 equals a. Well, 3 times 4 is 12, so 12 equals a. That is my constant of variation. So if I use the inverse variation formula, or equation, y equals a divided by x, I can write an equation as y equals 12 divided by x. So that's one answer right there, because it says write an equation that relates x and y. So that's it. Then it says find y when x equals 2. So if I'm finding y when x equals 2, I'm going to use this y equals 12 divided by x, and then just plug in that, and I said 2, it's negative, I'm sorry, plug in that -2. So 12 divided by -2. And when I do that, I get y is equal to -6. Just make sure that you're using the right numbers in the right places. So pay close attention to that each time. Alright, so let's look right here. This is just a little bit of a review of the other problems that we've done. So we have right here 6x equals y. Well, if I look and I take and divide this excuse me, by x on both sides, I end up with 6 is equal to y divided by x. That is direct variation. And a is equal to 6. Right here, I have x times y. It's already set up. X times y is inverse variation, and a is equal to -0.25. And the last one has a plus in it. No matter what, when it has that plus, it is neither direct or inverse variation. Okay? If you would like to look at a couple of those tables there, you may. I will go ahead and help you out here. This one is direct variation, and a equals -5. You can check yourself on that. And this one over here is not direct. This one over here is inverse variation, and a is equal to 60. So you can take some time and work that out. Make sure you get the correct answer if you would like. And the last one here, we're just going to work one of these. Not going to worry about the number 9 what if. The variables x and y vary inversely. So let's just look at number 8. On number 8, it gives me an x and a y. I already know they vary inversely, so I'm going to start off with my x times y equals a. Let's plug those in. 1/2 times 16 equals a. Well, half of 16 is 8, so a is 8. That right there helps me get an equation of y equals 8 over x. So that's the first thing right there, is that equation, because it says to go ahead and write an equation relating the two. Then I need to find when x is 2. So this goes with all of these problems. When x is 2, so let's just plug it in. Y equals 8 over x, and then I have y equals 8 over 2. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So there we go. Y equals 4. Okay, and that's all of it.